few agenda items on there for me, but could we add a couple?
Let's call
Real
it-
quick.
let's call it meeting. And I have
He's
one
like,
Rick, we had an agreement.
It's true. You've got a time limit on
We
each one.
didn't have the addition on the agenda items, so.
Okay.
What addition?
These need to be real quick.
All right.
I have one quick one too.
Call this meeting to order. We don't need to pledge of allegiance, not listed on this one. Roll call though.
Larry Goodler,
Here.
Troy Jay,
Here.
Cindy Holland,
here,
Rick Wester.
Here. Okay, straight to new business. Jason, wastewater taps.
Do you want to, can I do these?
Oh, I'm sorry. You
No,
want
it's
to go
fine.
ahead and
I'll
add?
open it if it's okay.
Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just would like to add cabin, HWC, Brian Polar from HWC Engineering, to talk about community crossings, ready, Eagle Club Road, the private drive, just briefly.
Okay.
I added that just because he was gonna be here, and it's perfect time to update you, and I don't think he's met you yet. And he was gonna be here, so that's the only reason I'm adding it.
Okay.
IHCDA, and then I've got three requests by our water and wastewater superintendent for some purchases. So Baston Logan, Hawk, is that how you have to pronounce that, or Hash, or the quality service. So I'll let them
Okay.
explain it. I asked them to, I just gave it to them and let them explain it.
Okay.
Everyone knows what we're doing, but I think we can zip through those pretty quickly.
I just have one thing on a
A lean, okay. All right. You want to go, you want to let Richard go first?
Sure. Thank you. Back in 2011, a lien was placed on the property for $5,525 for an unsafe building. It appears everything was filed correctly. Recently, the property changed hands and it was titled as a sewer lien. The owner of the property had asked a question because of the unsafe building and the legitimacy of the lien. I've looked into that. I can't find anything that says we can't do it. And I've explained that to Don. Don is a new owner of this property. The question on the sewer lien popping up, that was just, it kind of muddies the waters. In talking to Don, he'd be willing to pay $1,500 just to clear this up and be done. I indicated to him that that's obviously outside of my ability to accept, that'd be up to the council. But he's willing to pay $1,500 for the release of this lien, just to be done and move on. Again, this is a 2011.
Yeah. On the fifth, what purpose would the $1,500 be? Is there any cost that we need to recoup or?
Well, we obviously, this is obviously before me, and I think
Yeah.
most of it. Apparently, the town had spent $5,500 to clean up a property,
Okay.
so this would go towards the recoupment
Okay.
of that amount.
Okay.
That all occurred before my ownership of the property,
Yeah.
but it's my opinion that when the lien was filed, that there was a time delay between the time of the demolition and the time that the lien was filed. And when it was filed, it was identified, or apparently is identified at the courthouse as being a sewer lien. And a sewer lien can be applied anytime. I cannot for the life of me understand that the town of Cloverdale would tolerate a $5,500 sewer bill from an individual resident.
So what it sounds like is there was a $5,500 demolition cost.
Yeah.
And at some point, they put on the property, and our records don't indicate the timing. And as Don said, you know, you have a certain amount of time to do it.
Yeah.
And that whether or not we were in that window, between that, the sewer lien, the fact that the title company closed this without taking care of it, just creates even more.
Yeah.
And just to resolve this and put this to bed, it'd be my recommendation for the town to take the $1,500 off it and file it basically.
Okay. I mean, I was just thinking, we need to recoup anything, I guess.
Well, that's what I was, the $5,500 charge that we paid to have it demoed
11 years ago?
11 years ago.
Well, that's when the lien was filed 11 years,
Yeah.
in 2011, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know when the actual work took place.
Yeah, okay. I'm just asking, do we need to recoup 1,500 or not? If we do, yes, if not.
Well, that's a compromise,
You know.
maybe just to, so the town does recoup something.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we accept $1,500 to reach this lien.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Rich.
Thank you very much.
All right, Jason?
Okay, I'm gonna make the ones I added to the agenda real quick.
Okay.
The log cabin, I know that we talked about that in the last couple of meetings. We do have a contract signed to redo the roof. Since then, I have met with, a gentleman as a carpenter, he was with Carpenters Union, and he suggested we contact a gentleman from Greencastle. I did such. Unfortunately, and I think I sent you an email on this as well, he won't be able, he's in the maple syrup business, obviously this is the start of the maple syrup season, but he said he would be glad to come down here and assist us in late March to replace that log in the bottom.
Oh,
And I said-
yeah.
Do you think, I asked him, I said, would it be acceptable to have somebody else do it? And he said, absolutely not, he needs to be here. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad that we've kind of done this, waited on that, so. I've been worried about this for the last couple of months, but I really don't want to mess that log cabin up, so.
Yeah.
We're gonna do that later in the spring if that's
Yeah.
acceptable with
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, that's fine.
IHCDA, I had provided this to Kelly also, the India Housing and Community Development Agency or Authority. They sent us a low-income household water assistance program memorandum of agreement. I'm not sure if we need approval on this. I mean, I think we could probably just sign this without, but I wanted to bring it to your attention, if you do want to vote on it. We do have to sign this agreement. What it does is it can help assist low-income residents of the town of Cloverdale with their water bills, their wastewater bills. That can also pay for reconnection fees, arrearages, reduce arrearages, so we got somebody that's way behind. And the money would come directly from the state to us to pay those bills. But for us to accept that money, now there's a whole program, we don't have to do any of the applications or anything like that. The resident would have to do the application, do the whole thing. We would just be the one that would receive the money, and we have to sign this agreement to.
So what do we do, send the bill to the state and they reimburse us, is that how?
Yeah, actually, yes. There's a couple ways. Sometimes they'll just send you a flat amount. They'll dedicate $200 to go towards someone's bill, and then we apply it to wherever it needs to be applied. So it's kind of like an energy assistance program. We've had that around for several years. This is the first I've seen of them do it with the water and wastewater. It's usually just been gas and electric that I've ever seen. So it's, when I looked through this contract, I also gave it to Mr. Shagley to look over as well. It's,
So you can sign it, or?
yeah, I mean, I feel
Okay.
confident, I mean, I
Yeah.
feel that, yes.
Okay.
If you want to sign it.
No,
it's
no,
something
that's
you want
fine,
to
go
do.
ahead.
Or if you want to vote on it to make it official, that,
Do we need
it
to?
doesn't cost us
I
any
would
money,
vote.
it doesn't cost us any money to do this.
All right,
I'd still vote to approve to
Okay.
participate in this program.
That's fine.
can I get a motion to approve that?
All motion, we accept it?
A second?
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Okay, then I've got Baston Logan, I've got Richard here, you probably remember Richard, our water guy.
Yeah.
I just had two bills that were outside my threshold for rules,
Okay, yeah.
and he was just gonna let him explain it, if he was gonna be here.
The Baston Logan one, we had to change a valve, a micro switch on a valve for the filters. And that's the, this is actually a quote, but the price, invoice is gonna be near the same. Because you done what was on here.
1851.50.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we
Need a motion to approve it.
yeah, get a motion to pay?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the HOP is, it's our testing instruments, that the wastewater has one and the water plant has one. It's an annual calibration, maintenance, keep up a minimal warranty on it. We've done it every year. And like everything else, it increases, but for the two of them, it's $16.56, so $8.
Okay,
That's every year.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
yeah.
we have to, I'll get a loaner, they'll send me a loaner, we'll send one back, and send it back. So be some shipping on top of that too.
On top of the 1656,
Yeah.
okay. Well, can I get a motion to pay this and any shipping costs? Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Thank you.
And then we got this
Got Brad out here.
service pump and machine.
Yeah, I'll step up here so everybody can see my face.
Okay, yeah, get to the microphone.
Yeah.
Right up there to pay.
It's nice of Brad to show up for work today.
Oh, did he?
He's been gone for over a week.
Oh my gosh.
Should have brought back some warm weather.
On vacation?
Was he? Yeah.
Alrighty, so I will start with the page with the top amount of $37.17.
Okay.
This is one of the RAS pumps down there at the wastewater plant. You guys have seen me over the last year or two talk about the other two in the pit. This is the third one in the pit. It's went bad. The 3717 is the repair of the old pump, or we could upgrade it to the newer style fast bigger saws, just like we did with the previous two for the 4890. I mean, that's over 3/4 of the amount.
And didn't we discuss this last year, that these are more efficient?
Yes, they were more efficient pumps,
So the
new
longer it's
warranties.
cheaper.
And then, yeah, I mean, just between having a new pump and then rebuilding, I mean, it's
Right.
over 3/4 of the price, so. Now buying the new pump, we do have to get a bracket as well, and that's the 784 at the bottom. So there's a little bit more cost there, but, overall, I think we'd be coming out
What's
ahead.
the warranty on the new motor versus the rebuild?
Honestly, it's been, these been sitting in the office for a little while. It's been a minute since I talked to Brent about it, so I could call him and get that back to you on the
But we're
warranty.
assuming there's a extended warranty on the new pump
Yes.
versus a rebuild.
Yeah,
So we're looking at a more efficient pump, we're looking at a longer warranty.
yeah, well, and the thing is about the upgraded pump, they don't clog, and down there we have a really bad issue with, rags and sycamore leaves. So, the old style pumps, you have to pull them once a month, once every other month. So this will help kind of take down that labor, plus they won't have that clogging where we have to.
I'm no expert on the water side of things, but is there screening, there are screens that prevent some of this stuff from coming through?
There is a screen, and that would be the outside, kind of our inflow coming into the plant.
Yeah.
But as far as the sycamore trees, it's just the big trees next to the tanks.
Yeah.
We've talked about building something over it on the big sewer project, the grant money, we've been talking about.
Okay.
So we are looking at ways we can kind of get rid of that issue as well.
Okay,
but-
good, good. All right.
So, that was that one there.
Okay, so if, we're talking 4890 plus the 784,
Yes.
okay, so that's $5,674 total. Okay. Need a
I
motion?
make a motion, we go ahead and do the new upgrade.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
And then,
Brad, you have a question?
just think,
What longer lifetime does the new pump have over the old one?
they're comparable as far as years, as far as lifetime. It's just the components in the pump aren't gonna wear as hard, and they can pass a bigger saw, they're not gonna clog up. So if it does clog overnight and I don't notice it till the next day or the following, then, I don't have that bearing or motor overworking, and
Okay, thank you.
So less
And there's an
maintenance.
energy savings
Yeah.
with the new pump.
Yes.
So that's a good one.
Okay.
all right, and then the second page I have here for the 7847, that is for the Doe Creek lift station, or biggest lift station here. This is the first pump we've had an issue with here. And basically it was a seal failure and a bearing failure, and this price is to rebuild this pump. The rebuild price is substantially cheaper than the buying new, and being it's lasted for, I don't know when that station was put in, Richard, what, '04? I think.
Before that, I don't know.
I mean, so it's got 15 years plus on it, so another rebuild will last us just fine as far as rebuilding the motor and bearings. So that's that price there.
Is this anything with the development going on down there?
This is this would be to that lift station, yes. It's not because of that development,
Right.
but right now we do not have a backup for that lift station. I've held off on bringing this, we've sat on this for probably 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, we do have backups in the tanks right now, not down pumps, but in the event of something happening, then I will be down pumps, and if we can turn around and get them rebuilt, yeah, there's gonna be some downtime on the rebuild, but at least we'll have something in the works, and with how, shipping and everything's going and parts are going right now, it might be better to jump on the ball.
They're gonna have it repaired and ready rather than
Yeah, then wait
need it.
months for it to.
Is there any chance the developer would help out in here, or is this something we need to take care of ourselves? Okay, all right, just a question. Okay.
That's the only two things I had.
Okay. So for the backup, can I get a motion to approve the 7847?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Brad.
did talk to Kelly about those earlier today, about whether we can financially do it.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't even ask you. We got the money. Okay. All right.
And then last of the new agenda items I had, HWC engineering.
Yeah.
I'll introduce Brian Polar with HWC to talk about, he was gonna be here because of this other issue we're having an executive session about.
Okay.
And I thought that's perfect time to kind
Yeah.
of update you on community crossings, ready, Beagle Club, all of that, and how that process works. And I don't think you guys have met
Yeah,
yet.
Richard, thank you too.
Brian Polar with HWC Engineering.
Yes, sir.
My office up in Lafayette. I used to live down here, so I'm Jason for a while, Richard. So we've taken a look at McDonald's Road and Beagle Club Road, 900, trying to put together a plan for that. We put together some estimates and included it in the READY grant application. And I don't know if you know or not, but the region applied for $50 million. They were awarded $20 million. And so now they're going through the process of trying to figure out where that money's going to go. Don't have any answers yet.
Do we, is there a deadline that they will come up with, or is it?
It's a mess.
Is it?
That's
Just
put
kidding.
that's put in lightly.
It's very technical. I'll explain it after the meeting.
Okay.
So we helped with that application, and so what they've done is, and the state has changed some of their rules.
After, yeah.
Yeah, and criteria for what is a good project and what's not a good project.
All right.
So what we've reviewed so far is, we still think this is a good project, and it's still on the list. But then it has to go back to basically the committee of the different counties and figure out what are our priorities now that we're $30 million gap. So that meeting will probably be within the next 2 or 3 weeks. But the state has come back, and this is now ARPA money, recovery money. So with that is there's some additional rules, which they didn't tell us before. One of those is you would have to apply Davis-Bacon wages to this. You'd have to do through procurement. There's a few different things that you're going to have to, if you do READY. So at the end of the day, it may not be worth going for READY. It may be worth pursuing the community crossings grant money, which you can get a 75% match up to $1 million. Now, we have estimated this, if we do the full project, at about $2 million. So, that included a kind of a roundabout at the end, kind of past McDonald's, and some other development has happened that we may not need that roundabout, so that will reduce the cost. But That application would be due in July if we apply for round 2 of this year for community crossings. You can also, they make 2 applications per year, one in January, which is open right now, and then one usually in July. NDOT has said that they want plans completed and ready to go, so if they award the project to you, all you have to do is bid it out. So with that, I suggested to Jason is get started on some engineering, at least the survey work, and start moving that forward. And it's one of those things is we may have, as we go, and if ready comes about, and it's something that we want to pursue, then we can kind of look at that. But otherwise, we can at least have it ready for, in some fashion, to go for community crossings, if that's what the town is interested in. So, with that, I gave it a contract. I know Richard probably needs to review that, and you guys want to take a look at it. But at least get the survey started and maybe start, kind of.
Isn't that the PER? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Eric will talk about that.
Okay.
That's a separate issue with the
Yeah.
water. So, that's about what I have. If you have questions, we included this in the Ready Grant application. So it kind of gives you an overview of what the project is.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen that. I think I sent it.
To make us feel better, what percentage of community crossing applications are awarded, do you suppose? I mean, I know that. I mean, I know it's a pretty high percentage,
It changes every cycle, I mean.
Yeah, we're, if you have your ducks in a row, you're pretty much guaranteed getting it awarded. Where we've got a 99% success rate. So with that, but you'd need to have, things ready to go and not know.
Sure. So we got the survey moving forward, do we?
So if we spend the money for engineering, surveying, whatever,
Yeah.
you feel pretty confident we get it? mean,
I
there's
feel
nothing
like this would
holding
be,
you to it.
this would be a pretty slam dunk for community crossings, I think.
Do we need to vote on the survey to start, continue?
Let me take a look at this.
Okay.
If we've got another meeting coming up February.
8th, or
Yeah, second Tuesday.
2 more weeks, 2 more
So
weeks.
we approved your agreement that night. What's the time?
Our surveyors are about 5 to 6 weeks out right now and getting busier every day. So that's why I just want to kind of get it on schedule. I mean, I can give them a heads up and say, hey, we think we're going to get this.
Yep.
And go ahead and put it on the schedule.
But, we want to do this.
Yes, we do.
It's just a matter, I'd say put us on the schedule.
Yeah.
If there's a tweak we have to make to your agreement, this is the standard deal. So it's, it's just a quick
Yeah.
review. So I would say.
Put us on the schedule.
Just get us on
Yeah.
the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll at
We
least
wouldn't
get
be
started.
doing the work before that next meeting, so we'll
Yeah.
get it.
But I can say,
In
hey,
case this team comes up, free tomorrow afternoon.
it's not.
They got nothing to do.
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
at least get us on the, don't wait 3 weeks to put us on the list.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And on this project, we could still break this out, and I think that's kind of what we may do, break out, like we originally talked about, the private drive from the Beagle Club.
Right.
So I think that project was, less than that.
That was about 800.
Eight, okay.
I have to look back, and it will change. I think, Jason, when we were running estimates, we were running a big cul-de-sac at the end of it, and I think
Which may not happen.
it's not gonna happen. That's gonna save a lot of money, so.
Okay, good.
We do have to address drainage, and so when that comes, that water just kind of sheets down.
It's
and so
terrible,
we-
it's
we
terrible,
got-
yes.
We'll have to address that, and
Right.
whether that's how we break that out and how we get that taken care of, maybe, we'll just need to talk about it and see what kind of budget we can go for. So,
Right.
yeah, good point.
Good deal. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. You ready for me to move this?
Yes, sir.
I apologize, guys. Not really. Okay, and this is the real reason we called the meeting tonight, was to discuss wastewater taps and potential wastewater tap fees and how we handle that process. I put a couple just diagrams, kind of what I put on here, or well, kind of examples, I think, for you to look at, kind of give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. And I've got a couple, if anybody wants these, I can, I've got some extra copies here too.
Anybody want a copy?
That's exhibit A, and there's B. At our last meeting, I brought up the issue that in our town code, it does not actually say who pays for, or actually who's responsible for the laterals as they come off of the main. And we've got several issues coming up specifically involving this issue. And that's kind of why I wanted to bring it forward and discuss it at a little greater length. Because Don at the last meeting, right, we need to really talk about it. I've talked to some other municipalities about this since, and just kind of getting an idea. And I'll tell you, everybody does it different. So whatever you guys end up deciding to do, I just hope you decide to do something.
Yeah.
And tell us how you want us to enforce this. But right now, there's nothing in town code. Our current employees, or in my understanding, the current former town manager, at least followed the belief that the property owner was responsible for the lateral all the way from the house, all the way to the main. So if there was new construction and somebody built a new house, they were responsible for, they would first have to pay the $1,000 tap fee, but then would pay from the house, or would be responsible for paying for the installation from the house all the way to the main. In my last community that I worked, we didn't do it that way. We did it where the town would take it to the property line, and then the homeowner, or business owner, whatever it may be, would be responsible for the property line to the house. So I just really need direction on how you want us to do this, whether we're going to be responsible to the property line, or if we're gonna be just responsible for providing the main out in front and let them tap in. There are some concerns I have about allowing somebody to touch our infrastructure or water, the way we do our water. We set the meter, we do the tap and take it into their property, and it's right at the property line.
That makes more sense,
Now,
to stay off the main.
yeah.
We don't want people touching on it.
Although I will say that I talked to a couple of municipalities that do require the property owner to connect to the main, but they have to have a contractor that is insured and bonded. And it still has to be inspected. And we still require the inspection as well, even for the lateral. My concern, is I don't necessarily think it's equitable for residents of Cloverdale based on which side of the street you may live on. And that's my concern. And that's why I did Exhibit A. And I don't know if that really makes sense to you, but I kind of tried to show what it looks like. So if you look, property owner number 2, let's say some property owner 2 decided he was going to build a house there and wanted to get a new lateral, he's going to pay for that lateral, I mean, just a few feet, for $1,000. Now, and he'd have to do the installation, or at least the way the policy we've been operating under, so just recently. Now, property owner 1 that happens to live on the other side of the street is going to have to pay the $1,000 and then install. And then he's going to have to pay for quite a bit of extra pipe. Rock going under the road. If we're going to encase that pipe, it's going to be an additional cost. I know that we do that in some cases, Richard, and I think on Stardust Road, we encased it under there. Then you're also going to either have to bore that or cut the road. Then you're going to have to come back and put asphalt in. So it's quite a bit more expensive for property owner 1 to get a sewer to their property than it is for property owner number 2. Now, I will say, that's the way some cities do, and they say, well, that's your choice for living on that side of that road. I'm not sure that's the equitable way. But, you know, that's a decision you guys have to make. I just need to know what you want to do. Now, we do charge $1,000 right now for our tap fee. That's probably on the lower end. I've seen Greencastle, I called them today, they're $1,500. I've seen it all the way up to $4,000. Now, I think 4,000 is pretty solid.
Yeah.
But I think an option would be, is to increase that tap fee,
Yeah.
and that the responsibility falls back to the town to take it to the property line.
I
Yeah,
think the ethical thing to do would be to provide service to the property
Property
line,
line,
whether it
yes.
be water or sewer.
right. I agree.
I think it's the fair way. Now, we'll talk about Don. Don's kind of got a different little situation we'll talk about here in a second.
Okay.
So, and I haven't forgotten you, because I know you why there.
I would like to hear what Animal Finance.
And they probably have some opinions on this too. Let me go through this other scenario real quick, and then if Don or HWC, if you want to chime in, you're more than welcome to too. At Stardust, it's my understanding that when the development happened, if the sewer main was on the opposite side of the road, they would only do one sewer main across the road, and then they'd widen to two separate properties. Am I correct in that, Don?
That's correct. Well, on every other property line.
Correct, there'd be
And
one
then
line.
the other property line, they cross with the water. They put water on one, and then sewer on the next one, water, sewer, as they went down the line.
And then they would just widen off.
And
Now, I know of other developments that have done that as well.
it's issue number 2, or drawing number 2.
Correct. So, in that case, you know, I guess there's a little bit of, something that's a little unfair, I guess. Is that lateral already to that side of the, in that case, it's already to that property on the other side, and we're still charging them $1,000
The tap.
to tap? Are you paying $1,000 tap fees?
Yes.
So, all that work has already been done, they still get a $1,000 tap fee, whereas
Right.
somebody that's on the same side may, I just don't think it's equitable. And I'd like to kind of at least work this out. It's not something that has to happen tonight.
It seems if it's already tapped there, there should be a tap fee.
Well,
Or maybe some kind of fee, but.
Well, I'm gonna throw this out there too, because we did this where I was from, I'm not trying to make this big, which that's not my point, but we had a tap fee and an access fee. Now, the access fee was to pay for the plant that the rest of the citizens have been paying on for years, and you come in and you pay an access fee,
Yeah.
but then you have a tap fee that is separate for specifically for the installation of bringing that sewer line to the property line.
Yeah.
If, Brian, if you dealt with this, I'm assuming, or Eric, if you, and Don's got his, but I'll shut up for a few minutes.
Yeah, Eric Smith, also at HWC. I've seen it both ways. I've seen communities where they make the homeowner come from the right of way all the way to the main, and I've seen it where the city or town maintains everything within the right of way. My personal preference is the municipality maintains within the right of way because you're keeping contractors, developers, no offense, but you're keeping people out of the town's right of way and you're controlling what is going on with your utilities.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the majority of the way people do it. That while there is, some people do it both ways, I more often see where the town maintains everything within the right of way.
Because you could still get a contractor that's licensed at the bottom that doesn't do this kind of work or
Oh.
doesn't do it well. And they could tear into your water, your fiber, and who knows?
Yeah, you have more control that way and there's less likelihood of problems.
How about the fees?
I personally think the access fee and a tap fee is a good idea, and I've seen that a lot of places.
That helps out if they're on the main side too, like the access fee.
At least we calculate, I don't remember how the calculations, we had a financial consultant do the calculations. But it was so that the infrastructure that's already in place, the plant that's already in place, that everybody's been paying on for the last 30 or 40 years, you know, been paying on out of their utility bill, allow somebody else to just come on and, you know, for free, just to start hooking onto that sewer plant and not have anything invested into millions of dollars worth of infrastructure. I don't know if it's necessarily a good idea or not, I just know there are
That's
towns that do
the
it.
access.
The access, but that's completely separate from the tap.
Yeah.
Well, that, I'm not sure that would work, in fairness to everybody involved, because some of the mains in the community here are 60, 75 years old. And how long they've been in service with previous people and previous administrations, et cetera. I do agree that, and the property line that you have drawn out here is applicable in some instances, but not in all instances where the property line actually goes to the center of the road. So that becomes another issue as well. And so where you have the road, the paved road certainly, and I can attest to the fact that over the last 35 years, this issue has kind of bounced back and forth and so forth. Some of the previous utility managers have actually cut the road and brought the sanitary sewer across the road and provided the Y tap availability for 2 lots at Stardust Hills. I can't vouch for what is going on in the main town or old town of Cloverdale, but where the property lines probably go to the center of the road. Certainly having, who knows, cut the road and put in whatever to backfill and tap the main and all that kind of stuff is, and another issue is where new development, new paving cannot proceed until such things as the sanitary sewer crossover and water crossovers are installed, so you don't have to disturb new pavement, new curbing, and that type of thing. So, and that's one of the reasons why my latest edition has not progressed at all past the first block, because of determination of having these utilities in place before we proceed with sidewalk and curbing and paving.
Can I have a moment to speak as well?
Sure.
Being our sewer guy. I just want to put that, like Don was saying, a lot of our stuff was put in previous years, quite a bit old. So say we are taking 10 or 20 feet of each lot, just getting at the property line. That's 10,000, 20,000 feet we're annexing basically into our system, you know, because we have 1,100 accounts. Now, we don't have a lateral launch system as far as camera systems go in the laterals, so that's another big lump sum. Plus all these clay tiles that have been there since the 70s or whatever. I mean, we're taking on responsibility for all that. So there would be, I mean, it's not just taking it to the property lines, but it's also all these extra expenses that will be coming with it.
We need to gather some more data on where all these lines do it. If they're in the middle of the road.
The other thing is, if somebody has a backup,
Yeah.
you know, right now, if our mains are open, we say, okay, well, you know, it's gotta be your lateral. And then at that point, we've washed our hands of it. If they have a backup and now we own half their lateral, then we might be doing a lot more work in lateral. You know, they might refuse to do the work on theirs because, you know, they might say, hey, it's on your guys' property. So there's a lot more possibilities for battles or.
Is that the scenario where we install the property line? Or-
Yeah, I mean, because if we touch any of that lateral, if we take it to the property line, we're admitting ownership of X amount of feet of that pipe.
Yeah, what Brad's saying is, in exchange for the control you're getting of controlling those lines between the right-of-way lines, you're also taking some responsibility and liability. And that's the downside of that, and you're right.
If it was all new construction, that'd be one
Yeah.
thing, but
Yeah.
being 90% of our lines are old clay tile,
You're gonna run
we're
in.
gonna have a lot of expense.
But are this only new lines going forward?
Yeah.
And new installs?
No, really, I mean, we don't have a policy that says either way.
Kind of gone whatever the mood of the day was.
That's, you know, that's the thing, we just need to set, because how we've worked it in the past is pretty much, they do it to the main. But it's not, it don't specifically say that in our code.
Right, I
That's what
know,
we're,
I realize that's what we're, but isn't this all just going forward?
It could.
Wouldn't it all be new?
It doesn't
Well-
have to be, because we have this
But
problem.
we have to address
How do we
the
have
things that
the
are passed.
We don't have a policy.
No, but how's it work with the old?
If the customer has a problem with the lateral, whose problem is it? Is it the town's or is it the customer's? We could go grandfather.
The perfect scenario is, this happened, I don't know, 2 days after Christmas. We had a customer, and Brad and Richard were both there, customer where he had plastic all the way to the property line, then it turned to clay. So the question was, whose,
Whose clay was it?
from the clay to
Clay
was
The clay collapsed.
was it ours, or,
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of the thought is that it may have been, or we had assumed it was ours, that's why it's still clay, but we've never followed that policy in the past. So
But
that's
he
what I-
didn't run PVC all the way to the main because
There was the,
So we just don't know what the thought process was
why was the clay there?
50 years ago.
Because that's what it
Wow.
was.
That's
That's what was
That's
there.
what it
when
is.
the house was built.
And at some point in time, they replaced it with plastic, and they probably assumed
Went to the property.
they just went to the property.
and
I'm
I mean,
sure
not,
it's more of that in town.
Sure.
Yeah, the pipes aren't getting new.
and then as far as them tapping into our lines, I mean, we have code spec that they have to use certain material, they have to backfill certain material. So it's not just, I mean, we do have control over those aspects as well. They can't just half-ass the job and leave it how it is, so.
Are we on site when they're backfilling?
I actually physically inspect
Okay.
before they're allowed to backfill. So, I mean, I do get eyes on everything before it's covered, as far as new install, new tap.
But I think we could have it so that it goes forward from
Yeah.
now.
But the problem is, what are we gonna do with, we have to set some type of guidance for
Pre-existing.
pre-existing.
Right.
Yeah,
I agree.
and I think our pre-existing should follow our new statute.
There's no good answer.
No,
Right.
that's,
Because you're running into, this prime example of the property owner went PVC to the property line, and the clay collapsed
Well,
in the right of way, not in his property, but in the right of way.
we're in the middle of the road. And
Yeah.
if it's in the middle of the road, and if you shift it to his responsibility to dig up the road and repair his sewer, because there's been oversized loads running up and down that road, you know, I think you're opening up another can of worms.
Video.
That's what I'm saying, I don't have I have a mainline tractor, I can do 6 or 8, but I can't launch in the lateral and look.
how expensive is it?
But I've also seen recently where even a 4-inch PVC Schedule 40 sewer line was almost entirely full of grease. And this is due to household waste, kitchen waste being flushed down the kitchen sink, and over time accumulated to the point where it closed up a 4-inch tile full of grease. And they had to, the homeowner repaired and replaced the line from the home all the way out to and they tapped directly into the sewer because the sewer was on their side of the road. So they didn't have this issue. But perhaps some of the issue here could be separated in the fact that existing properties, existing lines, et cetera, new construction be required before the roads are put in to have this type of crossovers installed by the developer to accommodate the road and the sewer installations that will be coming on later. That might
But the
be
problem is, once that developer's gone, whose responsibility is it?
It would be ours.
Yep.
But in our
Well,
subdivisions,
even if it, once it's tapped into, once it's sold, the developer is putting in this line and putting it in basically to specs and having the taps available at the property lines for the homeowners.
But there again, you just stated, he's providing to the property line. So from the
It's
property
that-
line in, it's the customer.
Right.
it is like the subdivision control standards, and Brian might be able to talk on this too. We've got that part covered, because it is in our subdivision control, the developer has to take it to the property line. So
Okay.
that for new is, or at least in a subdivision, that's already addressed.
That's already covered.
Yeah, that's, and that's to the property line, well, for that matter, the whole thing.
Okay.
Because they're building to the house anyway, so, just like this development down here, they'll be responsible for everything.
But that's all, not just subdivision, though, isn't it?
No, I mean, if somebody were gonna build a house here in town, that wouldn't, not necessarily apply, because there's nothing specific to them. I mean, that's just for a subdivision that's being planned.
So if I buy a vacant lot down the street, I want to run sewer line, what's my process?
That's what we talk to. That's the problem.
That is the problem.
And I would think as a municipality, we would provide service to the property lines. And it would be our responsibility from that property line to our main.
So we have two issues, one, going forward, and two, how to treat it back. So going forward, does everyone agree that's property line?
To the property line, yes.
And then what are we gonna charge to the property line? As you-
I would say increase the tap from where it is now, because it is very low.
What does it cost to do a bore now? But you have any idea?
A bore? You remember what we quoted on that, or Richard, you
I think it
remember?
was $6 a foot, sorry,
I was gonna say 4, but it's somewhere in there.
$5 a foot, the board across the board.
That was for a 6-inch, wasn't it? Which most would be 4 inches, but.
Which is not that bad.
Looking at, like, the first drawing where you have one short, one long, do we wanna charge them differently, or just a flat fee?
Well, I think that,
Sometimes we'll make money on the deal, sometimes we
well,
won't.
that, yeah, that and maybe the access
Yeah, because I don't like the
fee.
buying on the right side of the road.
No,
Yeah.
it's-
I don't think it's fair
No,
to the customer.
correct.
Well, I think it'd be more fair to have the same rate,
Yeah.
The same, Larry?
same rate either way, they go to the
Yeah,
property.
so could we call that
The
the
same size
access,
pipe.
could we call that the access fee?
Well, I'm not sure we're gonna do the access.
Well, and I'm gonna
Okay.
bring this to light, this is only for in-town limits.
Correct.
Out-of-town limits, that's, they gotta bring it to the.
It's all on them,
Yeah.
outside town.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is if we do increase this doesn't necessarily mean our workload would be any more necessarily, I mean, it just depends.
Yeah.
But it's possible if we increase the tap fee, and we were now responsible for getting it to the property line, we could have our own contractor that we feel comfortable with.
As long as we
So
pay
it's,
the
so it's
cost.
honestly no different to that homeowner. But we have a contractor we are comfortable with, we know is gonna do the work, gonna work with our guys. Not saying our guys couldn't possibly do it too.
But if they get jammed up, they're busy.
Yeah.
They're,
Good other jobs.
that tap fee could,
So what's a reasonable flat tap fee?
Well, this is Cloverdale. I mean, I can't see 4,000.
No.
no, I don't think.
We're at 1,000. I mean, I would think
Maybe
1,250,
Going up to 2 or 15.
1,300.
Well, the way Greencastle does it, it's 1,500,
Okay.
but then they have to pay for a contractor to come in there. So that could be
Yeah.
$2,000-3,000. I mean,
So if we, you
so
know,
they could be
Like
like,
the 1,500.
yeah, we go 1,500 and we provide service to the property line. And
$1,500 to cover our costs
probably not.
I think it will across the board,
on an average.
on the average.
If you want, I could get more of these for the next meeting, some more tap fees and
Yeah.
get a lot
Yeah,
better
yeah.
idea for that. I was just more concerned about who's gonna be responsible at this point.
And that average does work, you got the short side and long side.
You might find out too from some other towns about
Yeah.
what they're doing with the back, the grandfather stuff.
There is no good answer. I mean, I've struggled with this.
I think it's just,
Me and
as a
Richard trying
town,
to
we
talk
have to
about this
provide
for-
that service to the property.
Well, I'll bring this to you as well. We've got a development that is, I can't disclose what it is yet, but it is on a property that sits on 231. It is a potential commercial development, and it's pretty serious. No, I mean, I feel like it's going to happen, development. It does not have sewer access at all. The only sewer access is, there's 3 different opportunities, and I'll share this with you at some point, that go to, we have 3 different places where we connect to our sewer with gravity, but all 3 would require us going through somebody else's property, so we would have to obtain easement. And my argument is, it's our responsibility to at least provide them with access. The way it is now, we've got a lot in town that does not have access to sewer. So, you know, I guess we could require that the developer obtain that easement through these properties to get to the sewer. But is that our responsibility, or is that the developer's responsibility?
I think it would be ours as far as engineering.
We have to
I was
provide
just
the
gonna say,
service.
if we're actually extending the sewer, I would take that as ours.
To their
Now, if it's
property line.
just their lateral, like if we're servicing an
Is that
area,
new development?
Yes.
But again, I think that falls back on, as a municipality, we have to provide the service to the customer.
I was talking to this developer, and he was asking, and he said that he's doing the same development in another municipality where they're requiring him to obtain easement through an adjoining property owner to do the exact same thing, which is contrary to what, I guess, my thought
Yeah,
process. I mean,
so we would look a little more attractive than the other.
Well, that's the
municipality,
thing,
too.
if I had 2 locations.
Right.
Because I would assume that that property owner, with whatever company that is, I'd surely give you an easement. It's gonna cost you dearly,
Yeah.
because I'm your only chance, I'm your only choice. So providing that, of course, they could still hold us up for ransom too.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
yeah,
true.
but we would have leverage too.
Yeah.
Right.
We just condemn your property. No,
That was a joke.
no, we're not going to.
That's right.
Would this be extending a main to accommodate them, or would this be just a lateral?
Richard, what do you, or how do you, Bradley might know about this yet, so, have we had this conversation?
possibly, I don't, we've had conversations.
He's been on vacation.
He-
That's right, yeah.
It could be either or.
They
Richard's-
wanted to put the structure, our structure up further, or they could have a long lateral and go through the easement way. I don't.
Well, is there an opportunity for more
That's what I was
commercial
saying.
after we would do this?
Is it more than one lot?
Yeah.
Once the service is there,
I-
the opportunity's there.
I believe that this developer plans to divide this lot.
Okay.
I would say extend the,
Structure.
Right.
Town
Development.
structure.
Yeah.
Well, that eliminates the whole lateral issue.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, we would have to get some type of easement, so we could,
Yeah.
it would probably be from that property.
Well, I think this is a special case, that,
you know, it's gotten through one of 3 other property owners.
No, you're right.
And it's all gravity, so I don't think we think it's gravity, I don't think we're
So,
gonna have any
no,
provisions, but,
yeah.
but you feel pretty confident we can. And I'll update you guys.
Okay.
Just can't do anything yet. I just know they're negotiating right now.
Hey, Jason, is there a way we can capture these costs over the next year? So we can look back and say, hey, we charged $1,500, we had 10 of them and it cost us this much, we're in the ballpark, or we really need to increase our tap fee, or we just need to realize we're swallowing, you know.
The problem is, and since I've been here, we've not had any sewer, no, we've had 1 sewer tap fee.
well,
And it's something that's pretty infrequent. I mean, Brad, I think you said it's been like 5 years since you had done one, or it's pretty infrequent.
Okay,
But I do know that I've got several that are
Could be.
coming up.
Yeah.
so it should be easy enough to keep track of the cost to the town. and
Yeah, yeah.
We can make it.
And we
From what you're saying is then we could
make adjustments.
make an adjustment.
Up or down, or
Cost now, maybe.
or just know that, hey, we're losing this much money and that's the cost of being a municipality, whichever. At least you know.
But it does go back to, like Mr. Geddes, that I'm sure they put sewers in, but we've never had that installation fee out there because the taps are already to the property lines in most of the cases.
And, yes. But I would like to remind council of the fact that most recently, in the last 12 years, there has not been the construction going on that happened prior to that time. And since '08, more people have lost their homes than in the height of the Depression of the 30s. And that's a fact, whether government admits to it and advertises it or not, that's a fact. In addition to that, we have had a lot of properties that have been demolished, torn down, etc., and we have a number of vacant lots, both in town and, well, they're all in town, in Cloverdale, main town, as well as in Stardust Hills. We have a number of lots that the homes have been torn down because of obsolescence and neglect. So the consequence of that is that we have a time period that we're going to have to go through here whereby installation of new homes is going to be on a number of lots where we already have water and sewer in existence to tap onto. And that's just a fact of life. You're not going to see a new tap fee on an old lot, but it's going to put that lot back into a positive position of paying taxes to the town of Cloverdale with a new home being put on it. So it's still going to be beneficial to the town of Cloverdale to replace an obsolete home that's been torn down earlier in this meeting, some 10 years ago, and now we're going to have a new home put on that lot that's going to pay substantial taxes because of it being new construction. So some of this is a trade-off and some of it is just a time lapse situation before we get into new construction such as in Freeman's subdivision. That is all new construction and new tap fees that are going to be paid there. So that's beneficial to the town. But certainly we do have to have a positive policy to work from and for Jason to work from so that people know what they have and what they don't have. And when you talk about crossing other people's property lines with the sanitary sewer, even with an easement of size, that becomes questionable, and the responsibility of that homeowner going two or three properties down the line with his lateral, and if he has a problem, or somebody else trades that other property, no, I don't want that sewer on my property. Well, certainly the easement would take care of that, but all kinds of issues, and I think that's a separate issue from the general issue here of general policy of what to do and what not to do. And as far as the fees are concerned, the original fees or fees that were charged here in the town of Cloverdale for years, was $595 for both water and sewer. It was $250 for sewer and $295 for the water tap fee. So that's been some years ago, but that was increased to $1,000 a piece. And that's been in effect for quite some time.
The new neighborhood that was approved 4 or 5 months ago, will they pay one tap on fee to tap into our main, or will it be for each of the homes in the subdivision? For each. Okay. Same with water, same. Okay.
So you'll
Because we don't own the lines until he turns them over to us.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
You'll get some more data.
But that was part of our discussion too in the new subdivision,
Yeah.
is whether we would charge him the full tap fee, because that tap fee would be,
But his contractor should do the work.
and then whether, and this isn't in our policy either,
Yeah,
whether he should be paying, I mean, he's doing the tap,
right.
so should he be paying the full $1,000
Yep.
per lot? So, and I would argue yes.
Yeah.
but-
Yeah. Because they're gonna turn that over to us, we're gonna own all those all those
Right.
mains, not the laterals, but mains.
Yeah,
And eventually, we're gonna have to do work on those lines.
yeah. So, I know we said 1,500, you're still gonna check on some pricing?
I'd go higher than 1,500.
I can check around and get that for you. I would agree, this isn't something that has to be done tonight,
Yeah.
although I do have two different people that are kind of waiting for me to get back with them on how you're gonna proceed with
So
this.
do we wanna go ahead with the 15?
Well, I need more on how we're going to do
Oh,
these different
oh,
responses.
yeah.
If they hurry up and do it before we make a decision.
Well, one of them is the development, and I think we
Yeah.
kind of I think you kind of want me to think about taking the main extension.
Okay,
It would, I don't think it would have to be a very big one,
okay,
so I
so
don't think it would be a big deal, but.
we'll definitely have it on the agenda for the next couple of weeks, or
I,
you have enough?
I mean, we can probably put a policy together and let you guys review it, and, I mean, I can make one for each possibility of us going to the property line or us going to the main. And then you guys can vote on it at that point. I mean, I think this was, discussion is what the tip was tonight.
Okay.
Don't we think going forward, we wanna go to line?
Property
Property
lines,
line.
yeah. The $1,500 tap fee.
But if that property line is in the middle of the road, my take on it is that's a whole different scenario, and that's not fair when we have a 50-foot right-of-way in all of Stardust Hills. So you're making, in one instance, the developer responsible for putting in new lines and so forth to those property lines, basically 50 feet across the road. If the sewer's on the south side, we're doing it for the north side lots. Whereas in town, if the property line goes to the middle of the road, you're gonna accept responsibility all the way to the middle of the road for that property owner?
I'm not familiar. Do we have any property lines go to the middle of the street in Cloverdale? I know the county roads do.
County roads do, but I don't.
No, I think you have an easement.
Well,
The
the
road
road
is
is,
as
I
a,
would think it would end.
I thought it was all
40 feet.
I haven't looked at
What
it.
you've got a 40 feet,
of right of way.
40-foot right of way in all of Cloverdale, except Stardust Hills.
Well, I'm taking the right of way.
Then we'd go to the right of way, not the
Yeah.
property.
All right,
Well, the right of way probably.
yeah,
I was gonna say,
Generally is, but,
okay.
I mean, we can look into that too. I didn't know that, I know in the county, property lines could go to the center.
do we charge out of town people more?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's like Beagle Club's gonna go to the middle of the road.
But when it gets into town, then it becomes right of way.
Yeah.
Well, see, but on the south side of Beagle Club is in town limits. Same way with Stardust Hills Road. That road was there before, it was probably taken into the city limits, so it may go to the center. So, I mean, you're gonna have some variances here and there, but for your normal street that's been here for 50 years or more, it's gonna,
And when this happens, obviously, we're not gonna go get every property surveyed to find out exactly. Common sense has to prevail that,
correct.
you know, here's the sidewalk, this is most likely where the property line is. I think we can all agree that it probably goes to that general area. It doesn't make sense to have every property surveyed to find out where the property line or right of way is, what we call it.
Okay.
We just need to address this at some point, and
It's time.
Yeah, so you put a couple policies together?
And honestly, whatever direction you go, I'm okay, I just want direction.
All right. HWC, you had your hand up a while ago, I apologize.
I just want to tell you, you're gonna need to address your sewer use ordinance, because a lot of this is, it's in the sewer use ordinance, it says all costs to TAF will be borne by the property owner. So I think in the sewer use ordinance, it's saying take it, the property owner is responsible for taking it to the main. Also, it says, and you may not want to hear this, but every building shall have its own lateral. So you shouldn't be sharing.
Can't share.
You shouldn't, why, you shouldn't, because if one does get with grease, then who's responsible for that? So,
And we've ran into that issue in the past couple of years with lots that are wide, and it's kind of like our backflow preventers, you know, if it's already in there, it's grandfathered,
yeah,
but if it's open excavation, then that's when we require it to be.
get an individual.
Basically, just make sure you don't have any conflicts when
Yeah.
you set the policy.
And you may want to specify what size lateral you want, whether it be 4 inch or 6 inch, so.
Is there a difference between commercial and residential? Because there you have the different
I
routes.
think so. 4 and 6 or something.
What is it, start to use the laterals?
Well, I believe on these crossovers, the crossovers here are 6 inch, I believe.
And then 4 to the,
And then 4 inch wides to tap into that, 6 inch to go across the road. To compensate for the difference in having a dual lateral, so to speak. And then that just requires one tap into the main sewer. But we've had very, very little problem over the last 35 years with these crossovers under the roads in Stardust Hills. And so I think that's good evidence that they were put in properly and are doing the job with having a crossover.
Gentleman in the back.
My name's Scott Wall, I live in Stardust. About 10 years ago, I had had my sewer line replaced from my house all the way out to the code, and Richard and I talked. I had Steve Baker do it. My lateral that comes under the road to cross over was 5-inch clay, and it was in perfect condition. Richard advised me to shove 4-inch up through that as far as I could, and I did stick about 20 feet under the road with 4-inch
Yeah.
Schedule 40. And at my lot, 287 and 55, where that lateral came across the road, there was a Y, but I own both of those lots, so that Y was deleted because I had a maple tree planted there, and where did it go? 7.5 feet down to that Y. And that caused all my trouble.
Yeah, yeah.
But mine, like I'm saying, the crossover was a 5-inch. When I came up here to see what I had to do, I was told by the town, whatever Jason's job is now, I had to put up a $10,000 cash bond to cut that road.
That was the previous town manager?
Yes, and then I called, I don't know, Richard may not remember this, but he said, Scott, don't cut the road unless you just absolutely have to. And I didn't, because I wasn't gonna pay that up front. Because you know, you have to use flowable fill and all this. So anyway, that's what was done. I mean, it was repaired correctly.
Yeah.
And I work for the city of Greencastle at the wastewater plant. I mean, this is not something from an employee, but I've seen a lot of stuff up there.
Yeah.
You want control from right of way to right of way edge. You do.
Yeah.
What I have seen, when you let people infringe, is what I call it, out to the main in the center of the road, you open up a whole can of worms that you don't want. Because they're gonna cut the sidewalk, they're gonna cut the curb, they're gonna cut the drive, or your asphalt. And how many times, especially in Greencastle, I mean, look at 231 and Jackson Street, how beat up that place is, and the state's raising teetotal hell about it.
Yeah.
And they're getting ready to do a huge operation up there. It's gonna just shake downtown up. So you want control as much as you can, And this is a personal opinion, from what I've seen the last 10 years up there, you want that control. Because if you give it up, you've got a whole can of worms that you don't want. And that's just a personal opinion, and because I've seen it. I mean, I go on call up there this Friday for a week because we're on rotation, and it's just unreal the stuff you see. Because there's no control, or lack of, through the years. And as far as the grandfather thing is, like Larry was talking about,
Well, I'm not saying grandfather them in as we accept them. We need to have something separate for them that we do it on a per basis or something.
well, I think, from my understanding, the way I feel, once you get something set in iron, like your $1,500 tap fee, stick with it. Stay with your boundaries, because I'll tell you, like for easements, for instance, we dealt with Duke Energy last year, coming across down the right of way, up from the south side of Greencastle, coming north to the plant. And they came down the old railroad right away. Well, some people that live down there have a $60,000 pole barn sitting 15 feet onto their 100-foot easement. It took 3 Duke Energy meetings for that building to sit there. Because if you were in the Virginias or Kentucky or Tennessee with Duke Power, there was no questions, it was bulldozed off. They didn't care. Duke Energy, I'm just trying to give you a relevance here. Duke Energy of Indiana, which is old PSI, always had, let's work with the customer. Well, I think Duke has adapted to that in Indiana, but it took them 3 meetings, they got to keep their building, because those people were really upset. So, what I'm saying, I'm not trying to complicate things, but stick to your guns about right-of-ways, and use it, because it's there for a purpose. My boss asked me, well, why did they put those guy wires over here? I said, you're talking about Duke Energy. You can go out and tell them what you think you're going to do, and they're going to come right back with the guy the next day and say, they'll tell you what you're going to do. Because that's the way, because once they own you, once you get that right of way established, it's theirs. It's like the railway. Just because they abandon the line and pull their lines, don't think that they still don't have the right of way, because they do. Because in an act of war clause, they can come down that old right of way and they don't care what's there. I've read the book on it and I said, wow, this is unreal. So right of ways is everything to you as a municipality or city, and you need to maintain that. You really do. I don't know what you guys feel about that. I've seen some really sticky situations.
Well, appreciate your input.
And it's like,
Thank you.
if you remember where the old restaurant was on 231 North, Vicky's Restaurant, they built up on top of the hill, the new one, which is now where Jim Baird's office was. Well, they have a sewer system there with a grinder pump. Well, there's no sewer north of the viaduct. They bored under the road, came down the property line, down between the old feed mill and Bracky's western wear, and they actually pushed the sewer up. I think it's a 2 or 2.5 inch line, clear up to Depot. What is it? Depot Street up there on top of the hill, and dumps into a manhole. That's how they got their sewer. And that line's still there.
But there's still no mainline sewer up there.
Nope. Nothing north of the viaduct.
Yeah. And 10 or 15 years ago, that was supposed to have gotten sewer, at least to the fairgrounds.
Well, on the fairgrounds, there's 9 septic systems, 7 septic tanks. The way the city water plant has its own septic field and lift station that pushes out to their septic field. So, yeah, is Greencastle ever going to do that?
Depends on the railroad.
It's very expensive. Well, true. Well, at one time, they wanted to do Windy Hill, Ledgely Drive. That was going to be a huge, huge cost.
But it needs to be done.
Oh, it should have been done. because that place is a mess.
I think the biggest thing is when you do to the property line or to the right-of-way line, if someone has a blocked lateral, they're gonna call the town and say, my lateral's blocked. And you can't tell whether it's something in the main or in the lateral. So you're gonna be out there probably jetting some personal laterals.
When we get called and there's a blocked lateral that people think they have, first thing we do is go pull a manhole upstream and downstream. If they're not blocked, we assume, which is usually a correct assumption, which assumption is incorrect thought to begin with, but anyway. It's usually the lateral, and 99 out of 100 times it is. And as far as I
But you don't
understand,
jet the laterals.
no,
They
because
have-
we can't turn a lateral. Bakers do it.
So you wanna make sure that the homeowner's responsible for
And that's
that.
something.
Even if you put in the.
Yes, and that's something that needs to be written down and made aware of. Greencastle, I think Oscar makes them go to the main, is that correct, Jason?
Yes.
And to me, we lose control of that. But that's the way it's been forever up there. You know, Greencastle's got lines that are clear back to 1849, so.
Even if the town installs the lateral, you think it's still okay or acceptable for the property owner to be responsible for cleaning it? I mean, is that a?
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds right, because they're gonna have more probably involved than what we are.
I was gonna say, because I go through the same situation. I mean, if we get a report that lateral blocked, I'll go, upstream, downstream, checking both. Now, if it's questionable on flow, like I don't think it's flowing like it should be, or comparable both ends, I will clean that line where I'll take my camera and run through it. But as far as actually cleaning a lateral, I mean, we don't have those tools.
We have a schedule up here called the grease line schedule. Right, there's 3 or 4 lines in the city that we clean. That's out by Duke Energy place, one place because of the Mexican restaurant, and uptown behind Almost Home. I think there's another place. But we do that every month. We don't do the laterals, but we do the mains. We run the degreaser through them, we jet them. But as far as the laterals go, that's on them. Because you can't do every lateral, there's no way.
Yeah.
And and one of the big things is I think we almost force people to put in cleanouts. You gotta have them.
I was wondering if we should have a clean out at the property line.
Well, when I put mine in, I got one right outside my house, and where it turns and 45s to go the road, there's one there, and before it goes under the road, there's one there.
Well, for quite some time, we have been putting in cleanouts on the outside of foundations on multi-section homes. And so that goes directly in with a Y into the main sewer, so that it can be gotten to service that line, that lateral out to the main without going inside or under the house. And so we've been doing that for quite some time, just standard.
You put it up on the property line, it's a PVC plastic cap, and it's gonna get ran over by a mower, and you're gonna have a hole there, and then the water's just gonna go in. So
Well,
Back by the foundation is the best place.
we put these just outside the foundation, and they're generally raised up anywhere
Yeah.
from 4 to 6 inches above the surface, and got a screw-in lid.
That's the way it
So
should be.
they're
Visible. Out at Woods Edge,
visible,
I think.
and you can't run over them with a lawnmower because they're too high.
Yeah, well, but back there, yeah, but I think if you put it out by the property line or right away, they're gonna get hit.
What's the chances of burying one? Is it feasible?
Your cleanouts,
Yeah.
mine are mower level. I mow over mine, but the cap is there. At Woods Edge out there where Jared Grable took over that addition, they all have cleanouts, every one of them. All the condominiums out there were, Lee Pendleton and, what's his name? Out there where the
Russ Hurley?
Brett Hurley did all those condominiums out there, which is all private, they all have cleanouts. Because if you, that's something that needs to be forced issue.
Well, we have our backflow cleanup, I mean, that is forced in new construction or, I mean, anytime you open up a lateral, I mean, that takes away from the Grand protocols, at that point you have to have a clean out backflow preventer.
And I'll make one more comment and I'll shut up. Your backflow preventer is a huge, huge plus. We'll go around and hang door knockers, we'll open 10 manholes down the street, and guess what? We still blow somebody's toilet up. And you'll even warn the people, and you'll tell them, please saran wrap or whatever.
Yeah.
And we can have every manhole on that street popped open, and guess what? You'll get warned. So backflow preventer, when people are saying that's a bad idea, no, that's a good idea. I'm done.
Scott, thank you. Eric, and was it Brian?
Yes,
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Anything else?
Oh,
Okay, good.
Are we done with that issue? Eric has been putting together the PERs for both the water and wastewater, and he's going to update you. I'm sure it's the perfect timing.
I'll be brief. I think I've got
We're gonna have a
seven
timekeeper, Greg.
I can move things along.
We have been working on 3 studies, 2 directly for you and 1 directly for the state. We've been studying the water and wastewater utilities to do a preliminary engineering report for each, to make you eligible for funding from the state revolving loan fund.
That's probably his copy.
His master copy.
We got your notes.
It's not what you're saying.
Maybe I didn't have 7.
Based upon that, I would discredit Jason's next guy.
Okay. So we've been working on these 2 studies, and where we are now, we've met with staff to develop alternatives based on your need, and these are going to be both current and future alternatives. There's going to be some alternatives for each utility that are things that you're going to need down the road or may not need right now. What our goal is to get these preliminary engineering reports into the Indiana Finance Authority, which is the financial body of the state revolving loan fund. They are the ones that we can get loan and grant funds for these projects. The deadline to get bonus points for their fiscal year 2023, which starts July 1st, is April 1st. So what we'd like to do is have a meeting, Jason, with you and the utility staff to review the alternatives and come to some consensus on the selected plan for each utility. Then present that to the council, and then that will allow us to wrap up the report. We have a public hearing, which is required, and then we'll submit them to the state. That will get us in line. Along with submitting the PER, we'll submit an SRF funding application for each utility, and that will basically put you in line. They will score the project for each utility, water and wastewater, for their project priority list. And that is what will determine who they fund and where you fall on the list for fiscal year 2023, which is from July 1, 2022 through July 1 of 2023. I can tell you they've told me that they have more money this year than they've ever had because of what's coming in from the Fed, so it's a good year to begin.
Yeah.
Your rates are such that you're likely going to qualify for some grant money on the wastewater for sure. But hopefully we'll be back after we meet with Jason and present what we are recommending as the selected plan for each, and then have a public hearing before April the 1st.
And both are 70% complete.
Yeah, once we have the meeting with the staff to go through these, we can wrap them up pretty quickly. Most of the narratives of the report are done. The third project that we're working on, we were hired by the Indiana Finance Authority to look at Lieber State Recreation Area. The DNR is looking to decommission a lot of their wastewater plants and get out of business. So we are doing a similar type report, preliminary engineering report, to basically put in a lift station, decommission their wastewater plant, put in a lift station, and pump their waste to the town. Looking at appropriate discharge locations, looking at capacity issues. That project is nearing completion as well, so we'll be updating you on that because it certainly affects you. That's something the Indiana Finance Authority is looking to fund in full.
I was gonna say, wasn't DNR gonna help with that funding as well?
Actually, Indiana Finance Authority is gonna fund that.
Okay.
They are there's kind of an interstate agency agreement that Indiana Finance Authority has the funding and they're helping DNR decommission a lot of these plants.
Okay.
So yes, they would fund this and it would be a good, nice revenue stream for the town.
Sure.
When we come to you and present the final recommendations of each study, we'll likely have the results of that. But again, the funding for that will come directly from the state. So it'll be a separate project from yours, but it may be going on at the same time, depending on how the funding comes in. So, any questions? Any of that?
Sounds good.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of closure over the next couple months to get these done and get you in line for funding. In addition to what may come from SRF, we may look at Okra grants as well. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Do you know what route you're looking at yet? I mean, or is that been determined
The north route looks promising, where you already have some facilities. But we'll make a final determination that when we meet on the other two studies, we'll show you where we're at on that. Any questions?
That north route, you're talking about 43?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
243.
Well, yeah, they got it here.
That is,
Yes,
and I
yes,
think
one.
there's a campground that is,
Yeah.
is pending if we come that route, whether
Yeah.
it can connect to us.
Yeah, we've added that to our
Will
study here.
people along the way be able to connect? Or is it all be force main?
It will be a force main. I mean, there are ways you can connect to it. I mean, you don't like to normally connect to it, but if you do it correctly, you can. The question is gonna be is whether, Indiana Finance Authority is actually gonna own that line, we think, since they're funding it.
So they're not taking turn over to, that's part of it.
That's a question, that's an unknown. They may,
Isn't that better? Because we don't have to maintain the lift
Right.
stations.
that's true. They may want you to maintain it. That's something, that's a detail still has to be worked out.
Yeah.
If you end up owning and maintaining it, then you control what can happen to it.
Yeah, I think initially Kelly, in that meeting, didn't they say that that would be a permitted? When that was
Yes,
all-
they did.
he was saying that?
I'm not sure.
I mean, it would be, of benefit to the town if you could allow connections to it.
So with us making changes to our, how we do that, is there anything we ought to watch out for?
Certainly, there's some language we want to put in there if you're connecting to a force main, which we can provide that to you,
Okay.
because that is different than a normal tap, for sure.
Well, and it's also out of city limits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've got homes that are tapped into force main. That whole line coming in from Burma, that's all force main coming till it gets to the bottom of the hill, so.
Okay. Jason, you want me to talk about the analysis we're gonna do on the other deal yet, or not?
Yeah, I think we're gonna do an executive session,
Okay.
Yeah.
so when this is adjourned, we'll just go straight into it.
All right. Any other discussion here? Anything from the audience except Tom Getter? Just joking.
Thank you for making input on this stuff.
No, thank you for everything.
Thank you
Thanks.
for the acknowledgement.
Yeah, okay. All right, this meeting is adjourned.
Let's have another.
Yeah.
We're all-
Seems like the night